Good evening, everyone, and welcome again to How the Culture Gets It Wrong. It's our podcast on dating, sex, and relationship insights with myself, Andre Parody, my lovely assistant, Tess Listic.
Hi, everyone.
My wife, Nancy.
Hello,
Parody,
everyone.
my woman. And this evening, we get a guest star coming actually from Los Angeles, and it's Yoseff Sagi. Is that how you say your name?
Yeah, Yoseff Sagi. Thank you.
Thank you. In the house. For a second, I didn't want to be rude, but how do you say his name? So, our topic this evening, a little bit intense, it's quite spiritual and deep, I think. We call it Releasing the Burden of Identity to Discover Your True Being.
Oh.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Right? So,
The new level
Can you say that
of
again?
the podcast.
yes. Releasing the Burden of Identity to Discover Your True Being. Not lighthearted. Or
It's the lightest of hearts when you discover your true being.
Here he goes. So if I was to say, from the audience perspective, again, releasing the true burden of identity, what does that mean?
It's something that we're always wrapped up in our life. From our childhood, we're very impressionable, and we start building an identity. And the identity comes from the name our parents gives us, and from how they raise us, and from the society we grow up in, and the culture and the religion. And then we're sent to school, and there's all these rules that are put upon us in the home and in the school. And then we grow up, and college puts more identity on us. And then we go to work, and our job puts an identity on us. And then I am my profession, and I am a parent, and I am a husband or a wife, and all of that starts creating an identity of different roles that we play, of which none of them are us.
It's funny because, God, it's fascinating. I
Wow.
had this conversation with somebody today. I'm like, we're all stuck. We're all like a result of our stories and the place we were born with no choice of ours. Like for me, I was born in Canada, right, in a snowbank, French Canadian, Catholic, right, speaking French, like all these things that I didn't pick and I didn't choose. I'm a white guy, but I could have been anything else. You know what I mean? Like I didn't pick any of this, right? And with this, my parents' values and the religion and their ideas of what's good and right and the impression, like all of that is schooling and the culture of that city. And then as an adult, as a person, like none of these I asked for. They were just like pushed on me from the place I was born and the people that I was born with. And as a young adult, then I get a good look back into what the hell does this all mean, and do I align with these things? And the way my parents took the Catholic paradigm to hell was to undo all that was such a huge burden and work. You know what I mean? That to find out who I am, what I believe in, what I think is right. After all that impressed on me, and then looking outward in the world, what is it that I really truly believe is true and right?
Now, I don't think a lot of people get to that stage, though.
Well, because you
I
have to
think it really takes something special to kind of some impetus to really want to try to change and discover who you are and your identity. And I'm maybe in the process of that right now a little bit. I think maybe we are at different stages. We question it, right?
Yeah.
But so I think it's really cool that that's what you do and that's what your journey is, and if people can get to that stage, I think that's really, really important and special.
I think, and you see if you agree with me, because I think on a certain level, everybody kind of gets to one point where they go, wait a second, like what is all this crap that was, like, am I really believing this? Do I line up with these values that were passed on to me?
Well, it's not, I know you're talking about like sort of removing all of that as a burden.
Some of it could be, right? Not all of it.
It could feel like a burden. It depends what your relationship to it is. But you can also think about it as unwrapping a present, where you haven't.
Hold on, wait. I never thought of it that way for 1 second, because it was.
I love this.
From my perspective, it seemed all wrong. For me,
I don't believe that there are any mistakes, and if you didn't grow up with any of those things, there would be nothing to you.
Right.
You'd just be a blank slate. And so I think what it's all about is erasing the bits you don't like and painting back onto that slate what you do want. Because maybe there's bits of it that you love. Maybe you love the French culture and whatever that brings to you, and you can take from it the good things, and maybe it's the charm or whatever it is that you picked up from there. Maybe it's the politeness of being a Canadian, a fellow Canadian.
Pretty good, eh?
Right? Sorry.
No, I get it. You're right. Because
Yeah.
at one point, I dumped everything, and I kind of had to go back to some of these things were actually good and valuable, and to keep, But yeah, then the self-realization was really like, who do I want to be, and what does it look like, and what do I keep, what do I reject, and what do I rebuild, and or go after.
Oh.
I've heard before that every moment in time we define who we are, and we have the choice to define ourselves however we want to be.
Right.
So we're constantly evolving. And so at the beginning of our life, it's all put onto us, and that's important. And that happens. That's how it builds our personality. But then as we become more and more aware, and it's not for everybody, this work, but when you get to a state where you want to do this work and you become more and more aware, then you start stripping away everything that you're not. And when you do that enough, you'll discover what the true self is. Not just the person who's having the experience, but the person who's like the observer of that experience, the divine self. And when we discover that, and then we can choose, because we become the divine, we become the creator, we can create into this world any life that we want. And that's where the choice comes in.
See, deep. Hello.
I was just gonna say that's so deep. How on earth did you become this person?
Well, that was my next question.
Yeah.
Because what the audience doesn't know you. So how do you get to be this guy? How do you?
It's a trick question. Because we're all born that person. And I remember it very well from when I was a child. I was a child that constantly questioned things. And kids always question things. They ask why, and you try and give them answers. And eventually there's answers you don't know. And so you tell them, stop asking silly questions. Or you tell them something like that. And then we program them. But as children, we know it. And I was a particularly curious child and always deep. And it just so happened that when I was about 10 years old, my mother got into a spiritual community that sort of answered a lot of questions that I had. And yes.
I don't want to stop you.
Yeah.
Did you want to mention it, or is that too close to home?
No, I'm completely open. The organization I was part of was called the Kabbalah Center.
Gotcha.
And I think that was it for me, but it looks very different to different people. For some people, it's a religion. For some people, it's a spiritual group. For some people, it's a school that they went to, or a community that they grew up in, or a culture. And whatever it is, it adds some type of meaning to your life.
Sure.
And it added meaning to my life at that time, and it gave me a lot of answers that I was looking for. But at the same time, and this is the trick, any time you ascribe yourself to any one group, you're denying yourself of your individuality.
Right.
And I lost my identity. I identified with their mission, with their purpose, and it took me almost 25 years to recognize that that's not who I am.
Wow.
Just because it gives me meaning and purpose doesn't mean that's who I truly am.
That's a hell of a mind trip.
Yeah.
Because I would
say.
Well, yeah, straight up, and it's a podcast, so you can curse all you want. It's fantastic. This is not radio. Now, I would. So, I'm trying to imagine what it would like for you to line up with something for this many years, see whatever it is that's not working anymore, and then have to. Because after all this time, it becomes your identity. So how do you shake that off? And I mean, ouch.
Well, I wasn't given a choice. Okay. I wasn't given a choice because a couple things happened. Number one, like any group, like most groups, especially groups in spirituality and personal development, they become corrupt because people are part of groups and people are corruptible.
Yes,
and absolute power corrupts absolutely, as they say. And people in the absolute power in that organization got corrupted and were corrupting the organization. And that was one thing. Another thing was that I started losing meaning when I got there. I was hearing a lot of the same things over and over again, and I saw sheeple, just nodding to the same things over and over again. And we're sheeple in politics, and we're sheeple in a lot of everywhere. So it's not personal to this organization, and that's why, I'm happy to name it because it's part of my story, but it's irrelevant because we're all in something like that in our life. It could be our family, it could be a lot of different things. Right. And so the combination of the corruption, which made me made it misaligned with my values, and the and the fact that I wasn't gaining value from it, and I was like, what am I doing? This is the same. I'm hearing the same things every year, every class. There's really nothing new. It was like a double blind. It Whereas, and this is important. This is why these organizations, including religion and spirituality, have value, is because they give us a system within which to hold our morals and values when we don't have them. But once we have them, the problem of it is it creates a double blind. It creates the illusion that we're growing while we're not. And so we think that we're growing because we're part of the spiritual community. Everyone's talking about spirituality. Everyone's talking about their God or their Messiah or their leader or their political candidate or whatever it is. And so they think that they're part of something that's growing because everybody is thinking the same way. There's no growth. Because when there's homogeneity, that's the death. That's death. Darwin knew that. You need to adapt to survive. And there's no adaptation and there's no growth in most of these organizations because they have their own dogmas and rules and you got to follow it to be a part of it.
That's deep. So, wow.
Trying to absorb all this.
I know,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
This is the conversation you
from
don't
there.
have at the bus stop or,
No.
at Starbucks. Well,
Yeah,
well, of course, 'cause you're
of
that guy. I don't, right? So, take it from there, from what's unification of the masculine and the feminine? Like, what's that look like? Because that's the big part of the work that you do, right? Because it's part of the work that I do, but it's different.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I studied Kabbalah, and Kabbalah talks about masculine and feminine as sort of like a divine masculine and feminine. It actually calls there are these forces that it calls Abba and Ima, which is like the supernal father and the supernal mother. And it also talks about a lower masculine and feminine that are more relatable to us. And as I was losing value in Kabbalah, I started exploring in other paths. And one of the big paths I explored in was Tantra. And Tantra, of course, talks about the masculine and feminine a lot and the unification of masculine and feminine. And I saw the patterns between Kabbalah and Tantra, and then I started seeing those patterns everywhere. And I started looking into myself and seeing how we all have masculine and feminine parts to ourselves. In a way, our heart is very feminine, and our mind is very masculine. Right. And so when we talk about unification of masculine and feminine, it happens within ourselves, it happens within relationship, and it happens in a macro scale in the world. And all of those parallel each other, and that's literally how we create anything is masculine and feminine, because how do you create a baby? Unification of masculine and feminine. The universe was created through unification of masculine consciousness and feminine energy, and quantum physics tells you that. Right. That when you apply the observer, the consciousness, to the undifferentiated energy, it collapses into a singular point.
And it changes.
And it becomes, from this undifferentiated energy, it becomes something very specific. And so the interaction of the masculine and feminine is what creates everything. So if we want to create our lives a certain way, we have to balance and interact with the masculine and feminine. If we want to create a certain type of relationship that's powerful and long-lasting, we have to take on those roles in the relationship. And that's literally how it happens in the macro scale in the universe as well.
Wow. Ladies?
Wow.
All right?
Yeah.
You want to listen to that again?
Seriously.
I literally have to close my eyes to just take in the words and not be, to focus on all of that. And this may be just easy peasy for other people, but I doubt it. It's really a step into a different place.
It's an advanced consciousness. It's an advanced way of being or understanding. But go ahead.
How did you get to see really the world like that? Did it come all at once? How did you get to that level?
It came step by step.
Okay.
I mean, when having learned one path almost exclusively for 25 years gave me depth.
Okay.
And then having spread out after that to learn a lot of different paths, depth is masculine, by the way. Having spread out afterwards to learn a lot of different paths gave me variety, which is feminine. And the combination of those two things showed me that depth that I found in one place exists in every one of those varieties that I found. And then I did a plant journey, and that helped me to integrate everything and find it inside of myself instead of outside, because it was a very I've always been very rational and logical. And which is masculine, right?
You're in the male body as well, so that would be primarily where you go.
Yeah, but I'm in a male body with 6 sisters and raised by 5 women. But yes.
Oh, really?
Yeah. My mom and my grandmother and my 3 aunts were all like very big in my life. And my dad was around too until I was 12.
Yeah.
But he's also like a man that embodies a lot of feminine traits. He was also like very, always like hospitable, and he was a great cook and a great dancer, and like a lot of like really creative feminine traits as well. And I have that as well. But I was always a thinker. And when I did the plant journey, it like took all the things that I understood, and I'm pointing to my head now,
right,
and it brought them into my heart where I knew them viscerally.
Right.
And that changed everything for me.
Wow.
When I viscerally felt the connection of masculine and feminine. And since then, I've been able to do that over and over again in my life, even without the plant medicine. It was just a doorway, a gateway that opened for me to know things. And that's the difference. The heart knows. The heart knows because the heart, the feminine, is the energy, is what's connected to the universal force. In Tantra, they call energy Shakti, and that's also the word for goddess, for the goddess. And literally, Tantra is the study of Shakti, of the feminine, because that's all there is. And the heart knows, but it's the mind's job to agree with the heart. It's the masculine's job to agree with the feminine who knows. Because the mind usually looks for problems. And it's why? Because it's a problem solver.
Right.
Men like to solve problems. But the woman just knows. It's an intuition. And when the man allows himself, and this is the only job that a man has, is to be so strong with his will to connect, to allow himself to follow the feminine, whether it's the feminine partner or the feminine aspect within himself, the knowing part within himself. And when he allows himself to do that, instead of focusing on the problems, that's when he creates infinitely and in flow everything that he wants in his life. Or she, because a woman can do it as well, because she has the masculine and the feminine, the mind and the heart as well.
Eesh, I felt that. I get it. I don't know how that comes across on the other side for you guys, and then even the audience. But I completely get it. As a person who's managed to do this without the words in a lot of ways, like my whole life has been a matter of, getting myself to that point where, because I know as a man, what I think makes sense and it's logical, and this is crap, this is bullshit, and we need more of this, and like the logical, linear planning, all this stuff. But then the moment I get in front of an audience or become a client or whatever, that all has to go away, because now I have to be heart-centered to even sense what's going on with them, feel them through, and like, what I'm picking up that's sort of a little woo-woo, like I call it, I become the antenna to like merge with their energy and literally sort of sense stuff that he can't say to me that I know, because they don't have to say it because I know it, because I feel it. It's very feminine, you know what I mean? So that dance is, for me, it's like, how do you apply which appropriatly, Because to be, if I was in my feminine all the time, I would not be able to manage anything. If I was in my masculine all the time, I would actually lose the antenna and that connection, and I'd be ability to feel stuff without words when I work with people. So there's kind of a fantastic dance there.
Well, you're all dancers, and that's exactly it. When you're dancing together. You're one unit. And so you don't take turns. You dance with them together. You get the feeling, but then you're going to put words to it. And the words come from the mind. Words are masculine. Yeah. The masculine is, and I don't want people to get confused that one is bad or one is good or one is better than the other. They each have their role. The masculine is the delineator, is what helps to set boundaries and its control. And you need limitation to have understanding. And so when you put words to something, that's masculine. Sure. And that's the only way to transmit information. But when you put words, you also limit, because the word doesn't have the same power as the feeling. But it's harder to transfer feelings. So we transfer through words. That's why we're doing a podcast here. Yeah, and then we're not just sitting around the table and opening our hearts at everybody and not saying anything, right? And so the masculine's job is very important. You can think about it like the feminine is the raw energy, and the masculine is the tools to craft out of that raw energy something into existence.
I like that. That's
Wow.
like it's so cosmic, but it completely
Yeah.
makes sense to me. Like
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
like, I just never had it put in words.
I
Sure.
recognize all these things in my day-to-day life, but yeah, now having that perspective of the masculine and the feminine and the unification of them all within each different separate thing, I'm starting to see it. That's a really, really, really interesting perspective. That's awesome.
So you said something earlier about authenticity, and you know we're all in Los Angeles, and Los Angeles is its own bubble, and so and it's something interesting about even Los Angeles managed to fake authenticity, like, and that was really fascinating because I think it's pretty profound, not for Los Angeles, but for the authenticity part and the work that you've done and what's out there.
Yeah. And I don't want to rat on Los Angeles. It's my home and I love it.
Me too, but
and I use Los Angeles as sort of like just the epitome of the culture we have today of spiritual bypassing, because Los Angeles, for better and for worse, is a trendsetter. Trends start here. We're like the media's here, and so everything goes out from here. Mm-hmm. So as soon as something becomes popular, everything wants to do that. And so authenticity, we understand the value of it. And as soon as it went from having to have this hard shell to being vulnerable and authentic, so everybody jumps on the vulnerable and authentic train. And that's why I was saying they're great at faking authenticity and great at faking vulnerability. And you'll see everyone on their Instagrams with their like crying faces and like broken hearts, but are they really being authentic, or is this just a new role that they've taken on because this is what they want to show the world? And so and they've copied it from all the other influencers who are doing the same. Mm-hmm. And so it's just our nature as people to follow.
Right.
And for us to truly add value to others and to the world is not by following. It's by stripping away everything that you got from the outside and finding your true value of yourself and sharing that authentically. And maybe that's not crying. Maybe it's whatever it is. Maybe it's laughing. Maybe it's joking. Maybe it's swearing. Maybe it's whatever you are, however you're authentically showing up in the moment. And honestly, that changes from moment to moment because we're changing beings.
How's that?
Quote moment right there.
Right. I see it all the time on Instagram. I mean,
yeah.
Speaking as a millennial here.
Yeah, and you guys are on a different, plane,
Yeah.
and it's. I don't think it's good. You know what I mean? Like there's. And I'm just going to go off a little about this now because we're this is a whole different level we're talking about here,
right.
and what I see out there is no substance, all fake, all pretend, all being part of, all being popular, all having more likes. And like, what's this thing in school now? Like, back in the days, it was like, the cheerleader was popular girls and the football players were the popular guys, and being athletic and, physically strong was like, or attractive was the thing. Now it's how many people are following you on Instagram. Yeah. That makes you popular. Like, that's just an empty, shallow, disconnected sort of. Now, I'm maybe sound like an old guy right now. I'm just saying it's
true.
A different way that's inauthentic. You know what I mean? We don't really have the connections and the interaction that we think, or the kids think they're having. Tess, as a millennial,
I know. I'm just thinking about it. I don't think it even happens like in our awareness necessarily.
Right. But
I think it's just what we're used to. We're used to seeing certain types of posts, and so those will be fresh in our minds, and then we'll post like that, or we'll say things or react a certain way, use certain emojis even that are similar to what we're seeing, just because, or like you mentioned influencers. We follow influencers all the time, and it's subconscious. I think it rests at us in a subconscious level almost, and I think it's almost harder work to step away from that and to focus on who we really are.
Right.
Be a little bit difficult, and I'm speaking for myself, my own personal experience, to express that, because I don't know what people would then think of me. Was my whole life a lie? That's extreme, but
no, it's
know.
interesting. We used to do this all like in real time, face to face. In our like in the family, in the family system, and then in the school system, or in our culture system, like, you call it in the religion, all that stuff. Like, there was this, like, life was small in your neighborhood. Like, your neighborhood was your life, and those were the values that would carry, you through life. In a very connective. It takes a village, and the village was all part of it. You know what I mean? Like, I remember when I was a kid. We didn't have my mom watching us all the time. It was every woman on the block was watching us all the time, and call my mom, like, your son just, like, threw a rock in my window, or at the kid across the street, you know what I mean? Like, there was a community, always an awareness of community. Like, everybody took care of everybody's kids, you know what I mean? There was like, the neighborhood, and that doesn't exist anymore. You know what I mean? It's like it's nobody's business. It's on your phone. And so...
Well, let me put it this way, just to piggyback on what I was saying earlier, and I don't want to throw the parents under the bus. We're a parent doing the very best we can, but I've started every semester, in lieu of class, we're doing an assignment. And so fall, right around Thanksgiving, it was the gratitude assignment. And they had to speak of what they were grateful for. They had to tell somebody else that they're grateful for them, and just write down who was that. And it came back so powerfully. Like, we love that, assignment. Can we do this again? So for Easter, in lieu of class, we're doing the hope. How do you have hope, and how are you going to bring that to somebody else? And I'm thinking, they're not getting this. They're not hearing this. They're not in communities that support this. They're not belly to belly, as I say. Like, getting someone to actually answer their phone is a huge accomplishment. So I'm feeling the burden of trying to bring this to any student that I'm in front of in acceptable ways, like, not my agenda, but the response is overwhelming. So just
they're dying for connection.
They are.
Dying for true
They are.
connection, because this is fake
they don't know.
world. It's unauthentic, kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I'm optimistic, actually, and I'm going to push back on the title of your podcast, if you'll allow me.
Hey,
How Society Gets It Wrong. I understand it, and I understand the value of seeing that. But I think on the whole, we're moving forward. We're moving forward more than we ever have. We're on a bell curve, and some people are ahead of others, but we're moving forward. And we don't see the big picture, but I have faith, and I know that even the advent of this technology, the same as it shares any message, it shares also the powerful messages and helps to get them more attention. It just so happens, as humans, we have a negativity bias, and so we go towards the things that seem worse. But the truth is, the world's getting better. The poverty rate's lower, the child mortality rate's lower. Everything is going in a better direction for the most part in the world. But what we focus on is the negative. But the truth is, the world is getting better. And the truth is, we're evolving in consciousness as a people on a bell curve, different people at different stages, but overall we are evolving and seeing the world in a broader view because of this technology. It just exponentially puts growth on everything. It's an amplifier of everything. So it's an amplifier of the shit, and it's an amplifier of the roses.
Amen.
Yeah.
And it just, what we want to focus on is what we'll see. So if we want to focus on the beauty of what it's able to amplify, then we'll help to create more of that.
Sweet.
That's awesome.
Oh.
That's good to hear
inspiring,
that.
yes.
Yeah, that is inspiring.
As opposed to, like, it's all going to hell in a band.
Right.
It's not the
But
way
I
we
think
did
that's another fallacy, is that we tend to do, well, at least I do a black and white thing. It's either all bad or it's all good. So it's good to hear both perspectives and to take that into consideration.
Fair enough. So, like, Yossef, to leave the audience, to leave us this evening, so what do you want them to, like, the audience to leave with from this podcast, from you being here?
It's very important for me that people don't leave with something that I've told them, because I don't want people to follow me. I want people to follow their hearts. And I think that that's the most important thing. Strip away everything you're being told, everything from the outside. Take more time to disconnect and to reconnect to yourself, to be on your own, to see what matters to you, and allow yourself to play with that in this world. That's why we're here. We're here to play your way, and enjoy it.
Well,
Awesome.
Okay. Yeah, that'll do it.
There we go.
So, wow.
Beautiful.
Go boy. Go boy. Thank you for being here. So, now, I know what do you do? Like, do you coach people as well and all this stuff, right? Am I right?
So the things that are most important to me are creating paradigm shifts. So I like to meet people where they are along their paradigm and helping them take the one next step that's right for them on their journey. And that leads me to the second thing that's important for me, which is helping people to carve their own unique path in life. So I don't tell people, but I help people discover it. And the methodology of that is about the balancing of the masculine and the feminine within themselves, within couples, and within the world. And so it looks a few different ways. I do coaching with people to help them to create their own life. I do couples and what I sort of call like divine intimacy type workshops to help couples connect more to each other on a deeper level and to work with their roles and the roles that they want to play in order to create the relationship that they want. And then on a bigger scale, just to put more of this information out there to help it on the world scale as well. So in the individual, in the couple, and the world.
Nice.
See why I like him? You see that? We have a similar agenda.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
definitely.
My thing with the work that I do with people, besides leadership coaching, is when I do the one-on-one stuff with men and women, it's like this stripping all the stuff that they collected through the years that they're struggling with, and the shoulds and the shoulds and the shouldn'ts, and I go I bring it all back to I just want you to discover you. How do we get you to be you? Just how do you get to be completely you and strip all that stuff off and then kind of rebuild you for the person that you want to be, what you were born to be. That's, I think, to me, that's an honor to be the guy to be able to do this with people and help them with that.
We get to do it.
We get to do it.
So that was one of my biggest learnings just from this week. Is I used to carry a lot as a burden when I was in the other organizations. I have this mission I have to fulfill in the world. You don't have to do anything. There's no inherent purpose or value or meaning to anything except what you give to it, and you get to do it.
I love that.
I like that. I like that a lot. So how do people find you?
So depending on what generation you're from, if you want to be on Instagram, you can just it's at my name, which is at Yoseff Sagi. That's YOSSEF Yoseff Sagi. And if you want to go to the website, it's level7coaching.com. Level7coaching.com.
Beautiful. Good work, my man. Good work.
Awesome. Yeah,
I'm just I feel very humbled
yeah.
by you.
I feel very grateful and privileged to share a table with you guys.
It's kind.
Thank you.
Same here. How do people find us, Tess?
Sure. So the Facebook page is Project Equinox with Andre Parody. We have content on there all the time. And the website is projectequinox.net. We have blog material, we have YouTube links, and we have audio clips on there as well. This is also where you can subscribe. We have content weekly, and you can find Andre for coaching. Private coaching, group coaching, live events via his email or his phone number.
Beautiful. Thank you, Tess. Thank you, Nancy.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yossef.
Thank you. Thank you,
all
Yossef.
of you. Thank you. Andre.
Thank you for bringing this to a
Yeah.
different level. I mean, we have a pretty sophisticated audience, and this is way up there.
Definitely.
On this note, thank you to the audience for listening and checking in. And if you like this podcast, please share. We're on a mission to change the world. One podcast at a time, one conversation at a time, one person at a time. Really, that's what it is. So, we're doing this way. So, if it connects with you, just share, and let's do it all together. On that note, next week we'll have another
yes.
fantastic topic
Yep.
and conversation. Thank you for joining us,
Thank
and
you.
we'll see you next week.
Yep.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.